Hello, this is a Unity tutorial for absolute beginners in order to show you how to have a 3D environment where sounds occur and the volumes of them change based off of how close you are to them. It's very easy to do. I've tried to make this tutorial before, and so I ended up kind of like with a scene that's going to be very similar to what we're going to end up with. So I want to show that to you so you know what to expect. So there's just some objects here that, based off of how close you get to them, they get louder. They're spatially correlatory, and there's a little bit of visual effect. Okay. This is basically what we're going to make. Okay. So I'm going to assume you don't have Unity installed, but if you do, that's fine. If you type in Unity Hub, and go to download Unity, and then say download Unity Hub. You download the Unity Hub, and then I've already done that. So I'm opening Unity Hub. I'm not sure what you'll see here, but if you click on installs, if you don't have one, click on add, and then select the most recent version, and click next. Then it'll give you some options about what modules you can install. If you're on Windows, I recommend doing the Windows build support and the WebGL build support for browsers, so that you can basically make browser games and Windows games. But you can also add Linux and Mac and whatever you want. And I think you can do all that after the fact, but I'm not completely sure, but I'm pretty sure you can. And so you don't need to have a bunch of different versions. I just happen to. Learn has a bunch of tutorials. I haven't tried to use it, but Unity tutorials tend to be good. And then if you go to projects, assumably this will be empty. Go to this arrow, click on the version that you want to use. I want to use the latest version. And then we're going to create a new 3D project. Let's say with extras, because I know that works. And we're going to call this horse sounds, even though they're not really horse sounds. Just in the mood for horses. So then I'm going to say create. So we're creating a new project. On the left here I have all the stuff I want to make sure to go through. So cube, materials, transform. I know what all of that means. So we're going to go through those things first. Alright. Here's our starting scene. We're not going to use any of this stuff. So we're going to say File, New Scene. And now we have an empty scene except for a camera and a light. We do not want the camera. We're getting rid of the camera. So now we just have a light. And what we're about to have is a cube. To give you an idea on the Unity editor, well, I'll go through it as we need it. So in the hierarchy, this is just basically a list of objects that are in the scene. And we're going to put an object in the scene. So I'm going to click on Create, 3D Object, Cube. Now we have a cube. But the cube is not very big. Let's make the cube bigger. And let's call it ground. We're going to click on this, call it the ground. And then I'm going to go over here. This is the transform component. This is basically a script that has the values of a position, a rotation, and a scale, all of which are just a value of 3 different numbers. Okay? And so for instance, on the position, the X value is this red value. And if I move this, you can see how that changes. So that's just its position. Same for rotation. You can also change it by clicking on it and dragging it a little bit, so you can see how I'm rotating it. And so on. So I'm going to go up to this gear and click on reset to get everything straightened out. Then I'm going to go down to the scale, which is the size of it, and I'm going to change the scale to 20 by 20, which should give us the surface to walk around on. But we have nothing to walk around with, so we're going to go to the asset store. If you don't have this window, just go to Window, Asset Store. But I have it, so I'm going to click on it. And if you haven't set up an account, you need to set up an account in order to download assets. I've already done that. I'm going to click on I'm going to search for FP all. This is a first-person controller which is free that I've used and I know how to use. So I'm going to click on that. It should say download over here for you. You have to download it before you import it. But then after you download it, you can import it. And we're going to click on that. It's going to put it into our project. This is all the stuff it's going to put into our project. We don't need all of it, but let's not break anything by choosing small quantities and just import all of it. So now down here is our project folder. And this is all of our assets, and it's going to import these assets into this project folder. You'll see it appear. Bloop, there it is, FPS all in. This is the folder that just got put in. So let's double click on this. We're going to double click on first person, and this blue cube here is a prefab, which is basically where they've assembled everything we need for a first person controller. So we're going to drag that into our scene, or into our hierarchy, but you can drag it into your scene if you like. Let's click on scene to get back to that window. This is our first person controller. And just like the cube, we can drag it around using these arrows. Just put it down on the ground. This green ellipse is the collider, which basically says this is the boundary of the player. This is what it should not move through. So when this touches the cube also has one of its own, and whenever it touches, it does not pass through. So we now have a first-person controller. I'm going to give you an idea of what that looks like, but first I want to put in another cube so that we have a reference to space. So I'm going to say create 3D object cube. I'm going to call this a wall. All right, and I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to move it over. Let's just make this into a wall. So, oh, okay. So I'm sorry. One of the ways that the way you navigate through the scene is you right-click with your mouse and then use WASD, W-A-S-D, and that allows you to fly around the scene. I've done it a lot, so I'm pretty good at it. But take your time. Now, while we have this wall clicked, if I press R, we can then scale it by dragging these little things. So we're going to make this wall larger by dragging on various axes, and we now have a wall. Congratulations us. Let's duplicate that wall after let's get a little bit of a size, and let's duplicate the wall. So click on wall, and we press Control D on Windows, and now we have an exact copy. I'll press W so I can be in the move around gizmo, and I'll move this over here, and then I'm going to press E so that I can rotate it. So you can rotate on any of these axes by clicking and dragging. Boop, there we go. We now have two walls. I'll move this a little bit by pressing W, dragging this over here. Two walls. Congratulations, us. We're amazing. I'm gonna kind of set that up a little more straight. And you know what? I want this one to be. Let's duplicate another one and give it something. I want to do this. Control D, and then I'm going to make this a tower or pillar. I'm going to drag this over more towards the center, and then I'm going to press R, and I'm going to squish it back together, and I'm going to make it taller. It actually goes below our level, but that's fine. We don't mind. Now all of these are the same color. Let's change that. I'm going to go back into the assets folder, and we have a materials folder, but if you don't have one, you can make one by right-clicking and saying create folder, but we have one. So we are going to right-click and create a material. Boop. And let's call this red. Now over here in the inspector, these are the values for the shader. And we're going to click on this color, swatch, and then we're going to make it red. And then I'm going to make this tower red by just dragging the material onto it. You can also drag it onto here. Let's make something blue so that I can show you that as well. So I'm going to right click, create material, call this blue, go over here and adjust the setting of the color by clicking here and then here. Then we're going to actually change some, we're going to make this more metallic. You can play with all these settings. Some of them do stuff, some of them don't. Like you can make it transparent, for instance. Lots of fun stuff, but we're not going to do that in the tutorial. So now we have a blue material, so I'm going to pull this and drag it onto this wall. So now that wall's blue. Alright, let's go to our tutorial for guidance. Did I import the controller? I think I just did that. Yes, we have our first person controller. Let me show you what it looks like when we start playing. I'm going to go up to this play button and hit play. Click it. So now we can look around our scene. We can even walk around our scene with WASD. The controller default I don't like very much because it moves too fast and it wobbles, and it's got this giant cursor, so we're going to change a lot of that. Press escape, play. Let's change those settings. So when our first person AIO is selected, we can go scroll down over here in the inspector and change some of these settings to my preference. I don't like the crossword hair. I'm going to take that off. Don't like camera shake. Going to take that off. I'm going to change the mouse sensitivity to 2. Let's see, what else do I want to do? I don't want to head bob, and I'm not going to use foot sounds. And then if I press play, we have a controller that I'm a little more pleased with. Right? Escape to get out of there and press the play button to stop. What's next? Okay, we need an audio source now. That's the purpose of this tutorial in the first place, is it not? So let's make an object that is going to be like a speaker. Okay, we're going to create let's do a sphere this time. We'll change things up a little bit. Then if I press W, it'll change these little boxes into arrows so that I can move it around. I'm going to move this down to the ground. Then what we want to do is give this a sound. If I look over here in the inspector, these are all of the scripts that are attached to this game object. The position information, the thing that makes it so that it appears to us, and the thing that makes it so that it knows where its boundaries are, so if things run into it, it doesn't run through it. That's all we got. We're going to add something to it. What we're going to add is our own sounds. So if I go into the project menu and go to assets again, I'm going to create my own folder, and it's going to be called sounds. I have some sounds prepared. These are, what are these? These are wave files, but they can be OOGs, they can be MP3s. It doesn't matter much. If something doesn't work, try something else. So we're going to let's see. Let's choose this one. We're going to drag this sound onto our sphere. And now when we click on the sphere, if you look in the inspector, we have an additional component. We have additional script. It's added the clip. It's a script called audio source. It's added the clip, and it's got all these settings that we can adjust. So let's go over some of these settings. Play on awake means that it's going to start playing as soon as the scene starts. Loop means that it'll just, keep on looping after it plays once. We want to do that. We want to do both of these. Volume is the volume. Pitch is the pitch. You can adjust that in the editor. I don't really mess with stereo pan because I feel like it messes with this next setting, the spatial blend. Now 2D makes it so that it'll be a constant value no matter where you are in the level. That might be what you want, but it's not what I want. So I'm going to drag that over to 3D. Okay? Let's try it out. Let's play it. So as you notice, the closer I get to the sphere, the louder the sound sample is. Congratulations us. I'm going to press escape and then press play. Now, I tried to do a tutorial earlier and I got stuck on this and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working properly, it was because I had that main camera still up here, and it has an audio listener on it, and you don't want two of those. Our first person controller has an audio listener. Where is it? I think it's on the camera. If you click on this little arrow, it'll show you what's nested here. And so we have a camera, and it's got an audio listener. So my problem before was that I had two of those, and so it was confusing things. You only want one audio listener. So what is the next thing on the tutorial? We went over, oh, I didn't show you Doppler, or the log, okay. So let's go back to our sphere, and let's go back to the audio source script and the settings in it. So you have a Doppler level. Doppler is like, if it's at 1, if it goes past you or you go past it fast, it'll change the pitch. So it's kind of like when a car goes by you and goes, meow. If you want that setting, then you leave it at 1, or you can even increase it for intensity, but you can also put it down to 0 if you don't want that to happen. Now, logarithmic roll-off means the farther you get away from it, the less volume you're going to have in a realistic manner. Now, if you click on this, you can choose linear, which is not a realistic method, but it's kind of like the closer you get to it is turning a volume knob, and that can be helpful in some situations, and this is one of them. I'm going to click it, I'm going to choose linear in order to show you what max distance does. Now, if we start it right now, max distance is at 500, okay? Okay, so we're not going to have much difference in how loud it gets in this, because our unit here is only about 20 wide, right? How big is our ground? Our ground is 20 units by 20 units, and our maximum distance is 500. Now, if we change that to 20, then it's going to make it so that it's much more dramatic as we move around this space. Okay, so that's what the max does. Minimum makes it so that it can be loud, very loud, even if you're not right next to it. So let's just leave that as it is. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see what's next on our tutorial. Parenting and rotation. Okay, this is when we start getting into optional stuff. You know what? I should probably actually skip this for now, and show you how to save your scene. So if you go up to File, Save As, and we're going to save this scene as We Are Amazing. And if you go back to your assets, you'll see that we now have a scene called We Are Amazing. Now, why this is useful is because I can save it as I can then save it as something else, right? I can do another save as, and I can say test empty. Right? Now, since up here it shows you what scene you have currently, right? Now, if I go to test empty, we're in test empty. Now, if I go in here and I'm like, I'm going to move this pillar over here, and I'm going to make this wall up here, and I'm going to I want this to be enormous, 1000. Okay? And I'm going to save this scene. Now, you know, if I play it, I got all these adjustments, right? It's like really long, my wall's up there, and so on. And then I say, you know what, I like this, but I also liked it how I had it before in We Are Amazing. So if you double click We Are Amazing, you go back into the scene as it was, and you can make adjustments. And you can write a script so that you can flip between these while you're playing the game. So this is essentially how you can design levels very easily. That's why I wanted to show that to you. Lighting. Let's do a little bit about lighting, because this is boring. If you go to Window, then you go to Lighting, or no, Rendering, Lighting Settings, you get this little tab. I use this well, no, I don't really. That's a lie. So if we don't want the default skybox. The skybox is this blue in the background. I like to just have no skybox personally. So I went up. So I clicked on this little dot, and I went up to none and selected it. Okay, now we no longer have a skybox. So where does the environmental lighting come from? Let's make it a gradient. And we're going to pick some wild colors by selecting just wild colors. These different areas. Now it looks like a Unity game, know what I mean? Okay, and then I'm also going to give it some fog. I like fog. I'm a fog fan. So I'm just going to scroll down, give it some fog. The fog is going to be green. And we're going to increase the density of it just slightly. By 10. Okay, and then I'll generate that. And let me show you what this looks like now. Wow, that's well, let me get rid of this window. It's a much different looking scene. Am I right? Oh, see how it's blue in the background? I forgot to change something. If you go to the first person, unnest this, go to the player camera, and the background, it's always putting the background as this color blue, but we don't want that. We want pink. So now we have pink. Okay. Now I'll save the scene and see what's next on the tutorial. Post-processing. This is going to change how this looks drastically. If you go to, let's see if I can remember how to do this. Window, Package Manager, all packages. We want all packages. It's going to load. It's loading. And we're going to scroll down and we're going to choose post-processing. And we're going to install it. While that's happening, it's not going to, is it going to take a while? This allows you to do things like add bloom and chromatic aberration and just all that visual crap. I like visual crap. It makes your game look special. So it's importing that. Now last time I tried to do this, I could not figure out how to get it to work. But this time it's going to be different, y'all. So I'm going to close this little window and we're going to add some post-processing crap. So if I go to the camera, see how the camera's highlighted? And say add component, rendering, post-processing layer. All right. And then we want the layer to be post-processing on the actual, this is the camera. And it added this component, and then I went to layer post-processing. And we do not want to exclude the skybox. We want the skybox to be included. I'm not sure what this does. Oh. Let's just leave that so we continue to have our fog. Okay. And then we got to do a little more. We got to go back to the hierarchy. Say create a 3D object. We want a post-process volume, right? And since it's selected automatically, we can go over here and make this global, which makes it so that it doesn't matter if you're inside of this box or not. It's going to always affect the camera. And we need a new profile, so we click on new. And then we need to add some effects. So we're just going to add my favorite effect, bloom. And then click on this little arrows to adjust these settings. I'm going to click on this to make it have an intensity value. It's going to be very intense. And we're going to make it have a color value as well. And the color's not going to be white. It's going to be pink or purple. It's going to be purple, right? Still nothing's happening. Don't worry, we got this. I'm going to go up to the layer and I'm going to say post-processing. I think that did it. Let's find out if that did it. Last time it didn't do it. Okay, so I clicked on the game to see what our camera sees. See, scene just shows you the stuff in the level, right? Oh boy, that fog. I might have to turn that fog off. Window, lighting. Where's lighting? Rendering. Lighting settings. I gotta turn that fog down. It's way too much. I can't see what I'm doing. Oh. 1. Okay. I'll make it. Wait a second. Is that what I already had it at? No, probably not. Okay. Oh, I think it is actually what I had it at. It just hasn't generated the lighting. Generate lighting. So, no, that's fine. Okay. Anyway, let's see if I. So on the post-processing volume, you can turn it off and on, the effects off and on to see what the difference is. So it appears that I have not. Again, I've missed something that I have to do. So let's see what that might be. Let's go to the camera. And last time it was exclude skybox that I didn't do. Let's see what if I say this. Nope, that's not it. Let's click this. Did that do anything? Nope, that didn't do nothing. Post-processing. Off, on. I am never going to get this during a tutorial. I'm sorry, everybody. This is the third time this has happened. Alright, player camera. Let's enable this again. You know what? Maybe it is working, and I just haven't adjusted the settings enough. So I'm going to enable that again, and then I'm going to go to post-processing volume, and I'm going to increase the intensity drastically. Oh, there it is. There it is. I just didn't have it high enough. So I just needed it to be more intense. So if I press play, we now have this almost gross effect. Okay, but you know, it's not just bloom, y'all. It's like you can add all sorts of these effects and do a lot with it. Vignette is another one I like. There's all sorts of settings to play with in here. We'll make it the classic mode, and we'll change this color to red. See, it's not as vignette-y as I like. Oh, here we need to adjust the intensity. It's at 0. Oh, see, you can do all sorts of really fun stuff with this and give your game a visual look. Okay. All right. What's next? Change the scene. Okay. Building in the asset store. I showed you the asset store. So changing, I think I showed you how to change scenes. You can just double click on your scenes. In fact, it's probably a good idea to have these in our scenes folder. So now we're going to do some bonus material. I'm going to show you how to write a script that rotates an object. And we're going to do that right now. So on our sphere, no, we're going to create something new. So we're going to create a new object. It's going to be a cube. We're going to call this the rotator. Where's our rotator? Let's click on scene so we can see it easily. I should turn all these post-processing stuff off so we can see our shit. Okay, so we got a rotator. Oh, I'm sorry. Post-processing, I went up here and just I made it so it's not enabled anymore by clicking up here. So with our rotator, we basically just got this cube, right? And what we're going to do is make it rotate. Obviously, that's why we called it rotator. So I'm going to add a component, and I'm going to say new script. I'm going to title this component rotate object. You don't want any spaces, so I use what's called camel case, which is using capital letters for the beginnings of words. Press enter. Create an add. All right, and let's go ahead and, well, yeah, let's double click on this to edit it. So I've actually already written this script so that I don't have to figure it out. Here we have, this is the function of what happens at the beginning of the scene. And this function happens every frame of the scene. So you know in a game's like 60 FPS, this would have been 60 times every second. So anything in here happens just at the beginning. Anything in here happens 60 times a second, for instance, if that's the frame rate. Up here, nothing happens. So we're going to declare some new variables. Now when I say public, what that means is it's going to be available in the editor. So when you look at like all these things are scripts, okay? Like box collider is a script. And we have values here, and we can see the values and we can change the values. The reason we can do that is because these are public values. Okay, so that's all I'm doing when I say public, is making it so we can change it in the editor. And the value type we want is a vector3, which means a variable that has 3 float numbers, 3 numbers with decimal points. And we're going to name that that variable dir, okay, for direction. And then I'm going to say semicolon. And that's that line of code that we've just created a variable that's public. Then we're going to make another public variable. And this is a float, which is just a number with a decimal point. And it's called speed. And we're going to give it a default value. So before we even give it a value, it's going to have one, because we said so here. And that value is going to be 1. Now when using floats, it's a good idea to put f at the end. Sometimes it wants it, sometimes it doesn't. I just put it there. Semicolon. And I'm going to press return. Okay? So what are we going to do with the speed? What we're going to do with the speed is adjust how fast the thing rotates. Now, the way we're going to rotate the object is by using a script that Unity has already written for us. All right? But we got to access, we got to find it, we got to get it to us. I happen to know where it is though. So we're going to say on this, where this script is located, because it's attached to this transform, or right, which is our position, rotation, scale. So the script is attached to this game object. The transform of this game object is basically what we're saying. We want it to do something, and that's what the little period means. We want that to rotate. And then we put parentheses whenever we call a function, which is kind of like a verb. When we want it to have an action, we use a little. The period is actually like this is part of the script of transform. That's why the period's there. And rotate is parentheses, means that we're telling it to do something. And what we're going to tell it to do is rotate. We don't even have to write that script, but we want it to rotate this direction, which is vector3, times the speed, right? And that is the semicolon. That is the complete script. We don't even need this start part because nothing happens at the start. So I just highlight that and delete it. I'm going to go up here and save it. Save all. Now, if I start this, nothing's going to happen because we got to put the script on here. See how it's just got transform, cube, mesh renderer, box collider, rotate. Oh, we already did it. We already put it on there. Let's suppose I did not already do that. Remove the component. So let's suppose there's nothing there. We just take this and drag it on. And now we have the script we just wrote on an object that we put in. It's still not going to do anything because it doesn't have a vector3. We want it to rotate. Let's think about how we want it to rotate. So if I select this object and I press E so I can rotate it, see how I can do this? What value? This is how I want it to rotate. I want it to rotate on this axis. What value is changing up in the inspector? The Y value is changing up in this inspector, right? So that's the one that I want. That's the direction. So I'm going to go down to rotate object and I'm going to say 1. I'm just giving it a positive variable. And then if I go into my game, that object is rotating. Okay. Now let's suppose we wanted it to rotate very fast. I can just adjust this speed. Let's say I want it to put 20. Now it's rotating very fast. Now let's suppose I wanted to rotate the opposite direction. So I say negative, and then I want it to be slow. So now it's going to be rotating in the opposite direction very slowly. Right? And I could even adjust the what direction it's doing it by adjusting the vector 3. Now when I press escape and stop the play, everything I just did while it was playing is gone. It's not going to keep those settings. So you can kind of play around with it and then not worry about it saving. But that can also be a problem. So let me show you something else you can do. If I press play, let's suppose I really like it being at the speed of 20. I'm like, oh, that looks great. Okay, I can go over here while it's still playing, click on this gear, say copy component, right? And when I escape it, when I go out of it, see how it didn't save it? But I can go to the gear and I can say paste component values. And now it's what I had it on when I was playing. Alright, now what's kind of neat about what I tend to do with a lot of my games is I like things to rotate on large orbits. So I'm going to create a new object and we're going to make this one a capsule. Why not? And I'm going to drag this capsule onto the rotator, and now this is what's called a parent. This is a parent, this is a child. It's nested in this menu, which means that this listens to all of the transform information on this. It listens to the position, the rotation, the scale. Okay? Now I'm going to reset the value of the capsule so it'll be exactly in the same position, in the same rotation by clicking on that gear and saying reset on transform. And then I'm going to move it away on the X value about this far. Now let's see what happens when I press play. You see how the capsule's over there? Rotating with it? Isn't that cool? Does that remind you of a Leslie speaker? Because it reminds me of one. Alright, let's put a sound on there. And let's actually slow this rotator down because we want to be able to hear it pretty well. So I'm going to change that to 1. And then we're going to go into our sounds folder and then we're going to just put go whack onto the capsule. Now if we click on the capsule, we got to make sure that it's looping. And we need to change it from 2D to 3D. And we're going to leave the Doppler on there. Let's see what happens. Okay, and it's so far away that you can't really tell. So let me adjust some things. I'm going to click on the ground and press R to make the ground bigger so we can go explore. I'm going to press play. Let's get over here where this thing's coming. See how when it comes close, we hear it? Is that fun? Alright. We wrote a script, everybody. Okay, so let's do something. I want to show you how to put sprites in. I feel like that's a really helpful piece of information. So I have some PNG files that I've already created. I drew these myself. So it's, if I go to properties, see how it says PNG? That's because it's a PNG because that means that it has a transparent layer. And I want that transparent layer. So if I'll go back to my assets and I'm going to create a new folder called images. And then I'm going to drag this PNG file into my images. Let's go in and click on it. These are my import settings. Now I want it to be a sprite texture type. And I don't want it, it's not a single sprite, it's a bunch of them. So I want it to choose multiple. And then I'm going to go to the sprite editor, okay? Apply. What? I don't know what that was. What? No sprite editor window registered. Please down. Oh, okay. Never had to do that before, but we can do that. We know how to do that. Package manager. So that this is where it's going to be. We need 2D sprites. Where is it? Load them packages. 2D sprites. Let's install that. That's cool, honestly. You know, you don't have to watch this part of the tutorial, but I just think that this stuff might be kind of useful. All right, now we have that. Now it should work, I guess. So go back to our little sprite in our project thing, and sprite editor. Yes, now we have a sprite window. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And these are just a bunch of objects. Notice how they don't touch each other. I drew it that way, and what that allows me. Oops, didn't mean to do that. What that allows me to do, I'm right-clicking and dragging. What it allows me to do, since they don't touch each other, is automatically slice them. So up here on slice, I can say automatic slice. Slice. And now it has made a bunch of little sprites. They're not all perfect, but we love them anyway. I guess I should show you how to adjust it. So let's suppose this is not, let's suppose you wanted this entire area. So if you click on it, and then you can drag this. You know what? Let's revert. Let's not do it this way, because that didn't work very well. So instead of doing automatic, okay, we're going to just do this manually. So I just click and drag. That's the sprite I want, okay? Click and drag. That's the sprite I want. Click and drag. That's the sprite I want. Now the three that I just did are going to appear when I say apply. They're going to be separate little game objects. So I'm going to close that window. And see this little arrow? Click on that. These are the three that I just put in there. So I can just drag these into my scene. I can scale them. They're transparent. I can position them. I can even attach them to the rotator if I want. Here, I'll put this one in here. Put this one over here. And I'm going to drag this and put it on top of the rotator, so it's going to rotate too. Won't that be wild? And you can, you know, you can do a lot of decorating this way. In fact, my current project, I'm doing a lot of decorating this way. Let's see. Oh, and something that's probably worth noting is that on the sprite, it has an order and layer. If something is appearing on top of something else, you can adjust this number in order to make it appear behind it. So negative numbers appear after positive numbers. You know, the higher the number, the more it's going to be in front of something else, regardless of distance. So now we have this little situation. Oh, and let's put on our post-processing effects. Let's put those back on. What is happening? We have made a Unity game with sound. Yeah. Okay, let's see if there's anything else I want to cover here. Making the build. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So let's suppose that we're done, we're ready, and we want to build our game. Go to File, Build, I saved it. I saved the scene. And I went to File, Build Settings, and then you choose what you want to build. It looks like this. Looks like I was correct. Like if you wanted to do Linux or whatever, and you don't have Linux, then you can select it. Oh, maybe not. I don't even see it down here. But this is basically where you're picking what you're building for. Oh, there it is. Mac, Linux, standalone. We're going to do Windows. Okay. And then I'm going to say build. But oh wait, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's get rid of this example scene, and we have to add the scene that is currently open. So now that's going to be what starts, and then we say build, and then it'll create an executable that you can use. We're not going to do that right now though, because I want to show you some other stuff. I'm going to show you how to change scenes when you're in the game. I think that's very useful. So let's turn this post-processing stuff back off. So let's put it over here. We're going to create a 3D object, a cube, okay, and we're going to make this cube very large because this is going to basically be a trigger. We're going to make it so that this cube makes it so that our scene changes whenever we walk through it. All right. I have the cube adjusted, and then on box collider, I click on trigger. So now nothing can collide with it, but it can use the trigger scripts. So we got to make a trigger script. I'm going to go back to assets. Let's go into our scripts, and we're going to create a script called trigger scene change. No spaces. All right, it didn't pop up, so we got to go back out here and click it again. Now, I'm going to open it up on this other computer so I can make sure I do this right. Up here where it says Unity Engine, okay, we're going to add a line. We're going to say using Unity Engine dot scene management semicolon. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of the start function and the accept. We don't need these. We don't need any of that. We need our own function. We need a public int, which is just a number without a decimal. We're going to call it scene number. So that'll be visible in the editor. And then we need a function. And that function is going to be, it's called, well, we say void because we don't want it to return any information to us. It doesn't demand a return of information. And it's going to be on trigger enter. This is a Unity function that we didn't write. Parentheses. Okay, it just did all that stuff just now. And we're going to say if other dot compare tag, compare tag parentheses quote player. So that's saying if the other thing that collides with this, see collider other, if the other thing that collides with this has a tag player called player, then it's going to do something. And what's it going to do? Is what we're going to say right now with the brackets. Not the brackets. I don't know what those curly Q things are called. Whatever those are called. If the other collider has a tag called player, then we're going to change the scene. We're going to let's see, what is the function for this? We're going to scene manager. It's a scene manager function dot load scene parentheses scene number, which is the public variable. So all those scenes are stored as as numbers, and what this is basically saying is whatever number is in the public is in the editor on this object, that's the scene it's going to load. Now that's going to be a problem if the scene doesn't exist, just so you know. So that's the entirety of our script. Say save, and let's minimize this. Now we have to put it on here. So this is our trigger box, all right? So we're going to drag this onto our cube, and we're going to, let's say trigger scener. That's a great name for it. This is the trigger scener. Okay, so whenever something tagged player goes through this, it's going to take us to scene number 1 because we just changed that number to 1. Voila. Now we got to make sure that that we are tagged player because otherwise it won't work. So I'm going to click on the first person. If you look at this, it looks like we're tagged player up here. Boom. So we don't even need to do anything. except for there's no scene number 1. We are currently on scene number 0, alright? But guess what? We do have another scene. I remember making it with y'all. So we're going to go to our scenes, and we're going to open, this one is We Are Amazing, so let's do test empty. I'm going to double click on that. Remember this little guy that we made? So we go to File, Build Settings, and Add Open Scene. So you need to do this Add Open Scene for every scene you have that you want to include in your game. See this little number over here? This is the number that we type in. So when we're in We Are Amazing, which is the first scene that's loaded because it's the first one with the check mark, we have that trigger, and then it's going to trigger number 1, which is test empty. Right? You want to see what that looks like? Me too. We're going to click on We Are Amazing, and we're going to press play. We're going to walk into that cube, and what's going to happen? We're going to get another scene. Here we go. Goodbye. Here we are. What do you know? So you can obviously do a lot of changes in your game with that. That's why I think it's so incredibly useful. I could show you how to inverse the volume script. I have that written out, but I don't really want to do it right now. If you wanted more information on that, just ask. I think that this is pretty much going to do a lot. I think you're going to be able to do a lot with this info. I'll also mention that you can add a light. Point lights are the ones that I like. You can change their color, make it green. You can just and then I like to increase the intensity. See how that's changing the scene. Then also you can do things like let's suppose you want a hot dog truck in your game. Go to Asset Store, type in hot dog truck. Say sort by low to high. Wait, where's the hot dog truck? I know there's a free one. Let's see. Last time I just did dog, I think. Yeah, hot dog truck. So you can just click on that, download it, import it, drag it in. It doesn't even have to be in the asset store. You can use 3D models from like Sketchfab. You have a lot of options. Okay, I'm going to finish up the tutorial now. I think we'll go over it one more time to make sure we got everything. Yes, did that. We did all of this. Yep. Yep. Showed you that. Yep. Did not show you the inverse volume script, but we did show you the sprites. Okay. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial.